All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, around the world on the X Zone Broadcast Network and Sirius Satellite Network. If you'd like to give us a call worldwide, toll-free is 1-800-610-7035. Email is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And, of course, our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Dr. Mark Pitstick. He is a clinical psychologist and holistic chiropractic physician, has over 40 years' experience helping tens of thousands of patients in hospitals, pastoral counseling settings, mental health centers, as well as the private practice. Dr. Bernie Siegel wrote the foreword, and Dr. Wayne Dyer, Raymond Moody, and others contributed to his book, Soul Proof, Compelling Evidence You Are an Infinite Spiritual, Energetic Being. Dr. Pitstick was also the producer for the 93-minute Soul Proof documentary, with many interviews of experts and lay people who had near-death experiences, after-death contacts, paranormal encounters, and more. Dr. Pitstick's website is www.soulproof.com. And Mark, it's always a great pleasure talking to you. Welcome back to the X Zone.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for helping me share this with others.
You and I were talking before we went on air, and I'd like to send your wife or your fiance my condolences in the passing of her mom. But something very special happened to your fiance today.
It did, and it's a great example of how knowing this soul-proof evidence makes life so different. As I shared, her mom passed on 7 weeks ago. She was 90 years old. It was timely. And my fiance's name is Andy. This morning, Andy was in the kitchen getting ready for work. She's a RN at a hospital and also an acupuncturist. And she turned around, and there was her mom standing there, and in solid form. And they had a telepathic communication in which Andy expressed some guilt and some wanting to clear some things up. And before she could even say it, her mom answered her question, and Andy felt an instant relief of the tension she had about that. And it lasted 30 seconds or so, and it was over. And she told me about it. It's like, How cool is that to see your loved one who passes on? And by the way, over 75 million Americans have had these after-death contacts.
Mark, how does the life change of the person who's had the contact? Like, are most of the people who have these contact believers, or are they people who would have never believed this to happen, no matter what?
Yes, some of both, and that's what makes it so great. In other words, after-death contacts occur in people who have no religious beliefs, no beliefs in the afterlife at all. They can become total skeptics, total atheists, and yet they indeed have these experiences, some of which are personal, like Andy's, and she was transformed immediately, as I mentioned. Others are what we call shared ADCs, after-death contacts, in which more than one person at a time has them, and afterwards reports, and they all describe it the same. There are other ADCs that are called evidential. That is, evidence is learned during the contact that wasn't known before, could not have been known before.
What do we know about the ADC? Is there any physiology or a physiological explanation for it? Is it a mind over matter? What is it?
Well, first of all, quantum physicists tell us that if you look at all the light and energy that exists in our world, and that's the most absolute description of reality, light and energy. We're really energetic beings. That we look like we're solid to each other, but in fact we're made up of some whirling electrons with lots and lots of space in between. So they say if you look at all the light and the energy that's in our world, and it were the size of Mount Everest, the portion that the average human can perceive would be the size of a golf ball.
My gosh.
So the average human is looking through a little pinhole, thinking he or she has a good grasp of reality. So what after-death contacts and lots of other things now we realize is this is the other 99.999% of reality that's always been there right along. It's just that many people couldn't see it. Actually, some could, but they didn't share it for fear of being considered kooky. Now more and more people are coming to the fore and sharing these experiences. But to answer the first part of your question, those who have passed on are now in non-physical form, formless, and so they're more pure energy, and so they can sometimes manipulate energetic devices. Thus, the commonality of after-death contacts they have with watches or clocks stopping, electronic devices not working, lights coming on and off, garage doors opening and closing.
Mark, I hate to interrupt you, but I've got to take my commercial break here. Please stand by. Exonation, Dr. Mark Pitstick is my very special guest. www.soulproof.com. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X-Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled lite.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Mark Pitstick is my very special guest this hour. his very interesting website, www.soulproof.com, and he is the author of Soul Proof, Compelling Evidence You Are an Infinite Spiritual Energetic Being. And Mark, it's always great talking to you, and I'm sorry I had to cut you off there before the commercial break. If you'd continue, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure. Another factor that we're aware of about after-death contacts, Rob, is that when the receiver, and that is the person who has the contact, is more calm, is more peaceful, then that enhances the chance of having a contact. Again, it's rather simple, really, when we think about it. We're dealing with departed loved ones who are in energetic form. They've dropped their body, and so they're more pure energy, and that's a higher, finer energy they're in. Now, if the one left on Earth is nervous, anxious, fearful, they're not going to be on the same wavelength. They're not going to be able to pick each other up. Whereas if a person meditates, is more calm, doesn't fear death themselves, a good contact is more likely.
Mark, what made you explore this topic and want to share it with others?
I think I was born into this life, Rob, with a partial remembrance of that there's more than just this life, and there's several pieces of evidence for that, but here's one example. When I was 6 years old, my parents were showing me a beautiful sunset, and I told them it reminded me of God. And they only told me that 20 years later when I was in theology school, and we went to a Lutheran church. I had no upbringing that would make me equate beautiful light and sunset with the divine. But all this really came to a head when I was about 20 years old and started working as a respiratory therapist in hospitals. I was a pre-med student, worked in ERs and ICUs, and saw hundreds and hundreds of deaths, especially those of little children run over by cars, abused to death, women who are raped, etc. It makes you ask life's existential questions.
Yeah. I understand you have convincing evidence that no one really dies. Can you share it with us?
Sure. If we have about 10 hours, but we can talk about it a little bit because there truly is such a vast amount of evidence. So, for example, we talked about after-death contact before, and that's just one category. And again, those occur in 25% of the general population, 66% of widows, a full 75% of bereaved parents. One of the most well-known categories, of course, near-death experiences. Lots of people know about this, but what they may not know is that almost 20% of people who have near-death experiences have a glimpse of the future. And when they come back, events indeed unfold that they have no control over, like a sister-in-law dies or a brother loses his job. And they had seen that before, they glimpsed that before.
Wow.
One of the most profound aspects of NDEs, near-death experiences, is that there are tens of thousands of documented NDEs. That is, while the patient is clinically dead, their eyes are closed, they're in an ICU or ER, their consciousness, awareness, spirit, whatever you want to call it, accurately sees events going on inside the resuscitation room, on top of the hospital, around the hospital, and upon successful resuscitation without having a chance to talk to any family or friends, tell the doctors and nurses, hey, while you're working on me, here's what happened. There was a car wreck. There was an old tennis shoe on top of the hospital. Again, there are so many of these, all documented by universities, professors, that there's no doubt that consciousness exists beyond physical death.
Mark, what can you say?
And those are just two categories that I've just mentioned out of 9.
Wow. Is the established scientific community finally investigating, the near-death experience? And if so, what are they coming up with? We talked briefly about the quantum physics aspect, but what about the other main core sciences?
Yes, the near-death experience has been very well studied, and there are many, again, university professors, Ken Ring, for example, University of Connecticut, who have documented these, studied these, and there's no other explanation. Now, some of the most exciting research, though, being done by universities is about authentic mediums, and a lot of this done by Gary Schwartz, Ph.D., former Yale and Harvard professor, now at the University of Arizona. Dr. Schwartz has conducted repeated double-blind